Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me today here in this live webinar from Ojai, California, where today's subject is going to be discussing understanding autoimmune conditions according to Ayurveda. Now, of course, there's many types of autoimmune conditions, including rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, Graves, lupus. There's Addison's, celiac, Crohn's, even chronic fatigue sometimes can be an autoimmune condition. MS, multiple sclerosis, alopecia, and pancreatitis. This is an autoimmune condition of the pancreas. Fibromyalgia, autoimmune condition of the connective tissue. Raymond's disease, this is destroying the lining of the blood vessels. So there's a wide range of autoimmune conditions. And this particular lesson is going to be about understanding how to manage autoimmune conditions in a general sense. We're not going to focus on specific ones here because there has to be a general understanding to be able to treat it. In most cases, the patient needs to understand the causes. And that's what we're going to cover today. Understanding it, and then the causes of it, what causes it, and then how to balance it from modulate the immune system from this general perspective. Because we cannot just treat the specific disease. Say we have Hashimoto's, we just don't have like some special herb for Hashimoto's. You still have to treat the overall individual, their doshic imbalance. You have to treat the endocrine system in that particular case, and you have to treat the immune system to modulate it. And then finally, there may be some herbs specifically for the thyroid. But there's always herbs for the whole immune system to modulate it. And that's the key word. Of course, in Western medicine, we suppress the immune system with steroids, anti-inflammatories, antihistamines. But in herbalism, we modulate the immune system. Because we know if we take these steroids or these immune suppressing drugs, then we're actually suppressing our immune system, making ourselves more vulnerable to other immune conditions, including just the flu or the common cold can be a result of suppressing your immune system. So suppressing your immune system is not recommended unless it's an emergency situation. It can be life-saving. It's better to learn how to manage and modulate, we say, the immune system. So first, let's we have to understand what's happening in an immune condition, autoimmune condition. And we know that the body produces antibodies, and this is response to antigens, which attack or even can injure tissue. The antigens, of course, they're produced naturally in the cell as a result of either a pathogen like bacteria or virus, or even its basic metabolic actions of the cell. These antigens are produced. However, from the Ayurvedic perspective, they didn't have microscopes in ancient times, so they still understood there was cellular activity, even though they couldn't see it. And we could say, from Ayurvedic perspective, the cell has three aspects, or three, energies, which are the same energies managing the physical body and all diseases and all health, and that is Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So the Vata, we know, is heavy, dense, and thick and oily, and it's making up our resistance to disease, or in Ayurveda, it's the essence of this Kapha is our ojas, our resistance. So the cell has this too. We could say it's a cell membrane, which is the Kapha, which is made of this fat that's protecting the cell. And then there's the, in Ayurveda, we call it the tejas. This is the metabolic fire inside the cell. That's the essence of Pitta, which means fire. So and this is the metabolism of the cell, and including this aspect of the cell that's offensive part, the T cells, the antigens produced by the cell to attack the pathogens. This is the tejas, the fire part. So you have the ojas, the protection, made the essence of kapha, this is at a cellular level, and the tejas, the fire, the metabolic actions that's taking place at a cellular level. And then, of course, the prana, which is the communication internally in the cell, and the cells communicating with each other and identifying each other. So even in ancient times, they knew at a deep level that they couldn't see, there was this action taking place. And an autoimmune condition is at a cellular level. And it's, in some, we could say it's the tejas, so the fire, the essence of fire, the essence of pitta, we call tejas, is destroying the ojas, which is the protection of the cell. So it's a cell, the metabolic action of the cell, which of course modern times we would call antigen, destroying the protective aspect or the immunity of another cell. So in other words, it's metabolism or fire destroying our immunity and of other cells, or tissue, which becomes different tissue in our body. So, and of course, this can take place in any tissue in your body. You could have, it depends on the weakest tissue in your body. So say you're already a person who has nerve pain, nerve sensitivity, anxiety, and you've had, nerve issues in the past, then if you have autoimmune condition, then you will find that it's going to affect your nervous system. So say you've had joint pain in the past, and then you have an autoimmune condition where the immunity becomes too strong, then you're going to have inflammation and pain in the joints, and your arthritis is then diagnosed as rheumatoid arthritis. And of course, if you get tested with the doctors, there's called what the rheumatoid factor, which they test, and they can see that your immune system is overly active from the blood work. And they would look at this rheumatoid factor and other inflammatory markers to see that the immune system is overacting and creating this inflammation. And then they would be able to determine that you have an autoimmune condition, which would say be the cause of your joint pain. So they would no longer classify it as osteoarthritis or degenerative arthritis, but then rheumatoid arthritis. So now, why does a cell end up attacking and destroying other cells? Well, in Ayurveda, there's one reason, and that's due to ama. Ama is toxins, and this toxins is created first and foremost by your own poor digestion. So, and as per Ayurveda, all health conditions are a result of ama, and ama is generally a result of poor digestion. And of course, people don't understand what is healthy digestion, and I encourage you to really work on improving your digestion. And if I'm treating anybody with autoimmune condition, I have to improve their digestion, because this is one of the underlying causes. Three types of digestive imbalances in Ayurveda include Manda Agni, which is dull or weak digestion, where you're just not hungry all day long. That's considered poor digestion. You may think that's fine, and you're gonna maybe think you lose some weight, but you won't, because this poor digestion results in you not being able to absorb your food. Having malabsorption can result in cravings and other symptoms, which can even lead to more weight gain. There's also a Vishama Agni, which is variable digestion. The signs are hungry, sometimes not hungry, sometimes, and generally a lot of gas and bloating and constipation. That's the second type. And third type is Trikshna Agni. Trikshna means sharp, strong. This means you're too hungry, you're very hungry, you're getting hangry, you're getting acid reflux and heartburn, and this creates a type of toxin too. So all three types of these digestive imbalances, Manda Agni, Vishama Agni, Trikshna Agni, all create toxins, or in Ayurveda is referred to ama. So ama is heavy, dense, thick, and clogging and congesting and inflammatory because it's a toxin. And so this can create an immune response and create inflammation. So what happens when you have this poor digestion, one of these types of poor digestion, you don't have healthy digestion, which most people, like I said, aren't even aware of what is healthy digestion. So you'll have to always improve the digestion first. What happens is then this undigested chyle, or we call Ahara, partially rasa, this partially digested food is got undigested aspects. It's unprocessed food because your digestion was poor. And we could say these are like not fully digested proteins, for example. Not fully digested fat, for example, which is going to create lipids and other even high cholesterol. We could say as a type of toxin in your blood due to your poor digestion and breakdown of fatty acids. So this unprocessed proteins then circulate through your blood, and then they go through the body and to all of your tissue. And these toxins or unprocessed protein food, Aharasa, is then gets lodged or in certain tissue in the body, and at a cellular level, it covers the cell and makes the cell itself like toxic and dull. And then it stops the communication between cells. So the cells aren't able to communicate with each other, and then they attack the toxins with the antigen, creating the inflammation. So this means that according to Ayurveda, that autoimmune condition is coming from first poor digestion, then this accumulation of toxins in the GI tract, spreading through the circulatory system, getting in different tissue in the body, which is weak because the tissue itself has like a digestive system or Agni, Datsu Agni. And then it gets in the tissue, then it gets in a cellular level. It kind of clouds the cell, so it's no longer able to communicate with each other. They don't understand, that this cell is part of them, but they pick up on the toxins and then it attacks it. So this is the pathology of autoimmune conditions, according to Ayurveda, which means you always have to remove the toxins and improve the digestion. And you have to modulate the immune system. These three things. You have to tone down the immune system, and you have to remove these toxins from the system, and you have to make the digestion healthy again, so you're not making more toxins. Now, other causes, other sources of these toxins can be, besides just your metabolic toxins that you're producing from your own digestion, in this case, your own poor digestion, could be drugs. Most, whether it's pharmaceutical drugs or recreational drugs, these are toxic to the body, toxic to the liver. Heavy metals is a very good example. Vaccines often have heavy metals and are considered toxic to the body. So these can create toxins that confuse the cell and create these autoimmune conditions. And even just pesticides, chemicals, food that's not organic can all contribute over time to creating this type of toxin leading to this autoimmune condition. So, it's very important to understand that those are the three areas that have to be managed besides the specific area, whether it's in the thyroid or in the connective tissue or in the blood, that wherever the autoimmune condition is, that's still secondary to treating the digestion, removing the toxins, and modulating the immune system. So foods. So now we have to look at foods that would create too many toxins and remove them. And we have to remove foods that are inflammatory by nature. We have to remove them. And we have to also remove any foods that are herbs that are overly stimulating the immune system. So generally this means the person's going to be on a little bit of a detox plan. This doesn't mean necessarily juicing, but it does mean not having most meat. It doesn't mean you can't have butter, cheese, or ghee, because these are both cooling, and particularly ghee, organic ghee is very easy to digest and doesn't produce toxin. But most meat, chicken, fish less than beef, lamb would all be removed from the diet. Eating habits would have to be improved, so digestion is better, more regular schedule, so digestion is better. No eating when you're not hungry, no poor food combining that would create mucus, bloating, gas, acidity, constipation. All these things would have to be resolved initially. And in fact, sometimes with clients, I'll do 2 steps because the digestion, the elimination, the constipation, which also is a source of autotoxicity. When you're not eliminating in a timely manner, you reabsorb toxins back into the bloodstream, burden the liver, and eventually these toxins will become lodged in tissue and ultimately get at a cellular level and can lead to autoimmune condition. So we often have to get the bowels moving, get the digestion going, and often this means no meat and even chicken, and sometimes no fish, and lighter diet using legumes, lentils, mung dal. And butter is usually encouraged unless there's fatty liver or cholesterol or obesity, where we wouldn't want too much other animal protein. But for most cases of autoimmune conditions, actually some of the herbs are even provided in ghee and in butter, so it's not removed. It's not a vegan diet per se. It's just removing the hard to digest heavy foods such as meat in particular. And second, we want to remove the inflammatory foods, which the most inflammatory is the nightshades, tomatoes, eggplant, bell pepper, paprika, and white potatoes. So these are generally moved in almost all cases where there's inflammation and pain. And then, depends on the individual, because you still would customize or individualize this diet to the individual. If you had a thin, underweight person, you'd allow them to have more butter, cheese, sweet potatoes, and heavier foods. And if you had an overweight person, you wouldn't have the butter and the cheese and the heavy foods. You'd have lighter foods, like leafy greens and cauliflower, cabbage, and celery, because you always have to keep the individual in mind. You just can't only treat the disease per se, but you're treating the whole person. This truly holistic approach when you're looking at your diet to balance the whole person's state of health, plus digestion, plus elimination. And a lot of times, like I said, I'll do this in the first appointment and not even make a formula or treat the autoimmune condition until the second appointment. It depends on what the person's state is when they come. So next, we want to avoid foods that, so this detox aspect of it would be individualized. And of course, we have herbs that will help, and we'll get to those. But second, we want to avoid anything that's overstimulating the immune system, like certain herbs like echinacea, golden seal, tulsi, even ginseng, any of these mushrooms. Most mushrooms are good for immunity. All these things are very good for immunity, but when you already have an overly active immune system, you need to remove them. Other inflammatory foods that can make almost all autoimmune conditions worse include coffee, chocolate. Cacao is inflammatory. I know it's had a great sales effort in the past, and it does have magnesium, but it is inflammatory and stimulating. Now, green tea, if we have a person who's sleeping well, then we'd prefer them to be on green tea than on coffee. So you want to take out inflammatory foods and foods that are overly, and herbs and supplements that are going to overly stimulate the immune system. And unfortunately, that's not going to be a cure, but at least you're going in the right direction once you have the proper digestion, you have the proper elimination. And then in most cases, there are toxins. So we have certain formulas like this one here, which is made of Kaishor Gugulu, and Kaishor Gugulu is like a resin, and we call it here Pitta pain and detox. And but you can see the first ingredient is Kaishor Gugulu, and then there's Nugundi and Amlaki after that. And this is used for joint pain, muscle pain. It would be best for fibromyalgia and for other muscular rheumatoid arthritis, particularly where there's burning and heat. We'd use Kaishor Gugulu. And what's good at Kaishor Gugulu is that it's cooling. So when there's burning and heat, it's going to bring it down. The Gugulu cleans at it's very detoxing at a very deep level. It's cleaning out the root cause of toxins at a joint and muscle level. So if there's joint and muscle pain or inflammation, then and there's toxins, which we also can see just by diagnosing the tongue and feeling the pulse, we can tell there's toxins in the body, and of course by the digestion. If these same toxins are in the nerve and there's nerve pain like neuropathy, then maybe we give a nerve formula to support the nerve pain like ashwagandha, dashamula, yogaraj Gugulu, another Gugulu, conch is kapikachu is used in Parkinson's, and then nergundi, which is analgesic, and tagar, which is also analgesic and sedative for the nervous system. So, you know, we're still treating that particular tissue and supporting it and cleaning it out. If there's a person, the most typical type of person to get an autoimmune condition is a Pitta Prakriti, or at least if there's a Pitta Vikriti, means high Pitta. There's heat in the body, inflammation in the body, often acidity and burning. So if the person is very hot and this Pitta type of has a Pitta Vikriti where Pitta is high, there's acidity, burning, heat, strong appetite, Trikshna Agni, or digestion is too strong, then we would use this one here called Pitta Balance. And this reduces heat, acidity, and burning. And it's using Kamaduta Ras, which I'm going to show you, Praval Pishti, Mukti Pishti, which is powdered pearls, Praval Panchment, this is 5 things from the ocean, Guduchi Sattva, which is very cooling, and there's 2 things you can recognize there, licorice and fennel. It's a very effective formula, and it's can use for all these types of heat conditions. So we're still treating what, you know, looks like the symptoms, but we're using the symptoms to understand the condition. Now, when it comes to modulating the immune system itself, we have many formulas. Amlaki is used a lot to modulate the immune system, but here we have, it's called Amlaki Rasciana. Rasciana means restorative, but you can see its first function is immune modulator. It also is reducing burning sensation, acidity, ulcers, and it's balancing the immune system. So you can see it's for autoimmune, all autoimmune conditions, and modulating. Amlaki, of course, is a fruit. Amlaki, Triphala is made from Bibataki, Amlaki, and Haritaki. Many people are familiar with Triphala, and that's one of the 3. It's a sour fruit that doesn't increase acidity, very anti-inflammatory, and can be very cooling. But this is Amlaki Rasciana, so it's like the dried juice of the amla, not the dried powder, but the juice of it. They get the juice, they squeeze the amla juice, and then they get the juice and let it dry, and then the little stuff that remains on the top of the juice after you dry it, it's called Amlaki Rasciana. So it's a little expensive, but these are very good for modulating the immune system. Other herbs that we use are Guduchi. Guduchi, here we call it Amrit, is also called Amrit in Ayurveda, or Guduchi. And Guduchi is a very cooling, anti-inflammatory herb. And often, if there's a lot of heat, we're using what's called Guduchi Sattva. Guduchi Sattva is very cooling, one of the most cooling of all formulas. And Guduchi Sattva, Guduchi is a nice little plant that like a creeper, and it's balancing all 3 doshas, but particularly Pitta, and very anti-inflammatory, and it's a key herb in Kaishor Gugulu. And you can see Guduchi Sattva is even in Pitta balance, bringing down heat and burning sensation. But Guduchi Sattva is even more cooling than Guduchi. Again, they take the Guduchi and then they like soak it or cook it, and then this little frothy stuff comes to the top, and they scrape it off and dry it, and that's Guduchi Sattva. So it's also a little pricey, but you don't need much. It's very cooling, very, very cooling, because you're trying to drop the metabolic activity at a cellular level. And Guduchi Sattva and these Amlaki Rasiana are very fine. So these formulas, they go right to the cellular level and modulate the metabolic action and the immune response at a cellular level by balancing Pitta, as the essence of Pitta is Tejas, and the cause of autoimmune conditions is Tejas, this fire attacking the Ojas, or the immune system. So we have to bring down the Pitta, bring down the immune system. And of course, if they're not too cold, I mean, not too hot and burning, but just have inflammation, then we can use an anti-inflammatory formulas. Here we use boswellia extract, which is of course frankincense. There's amlaki instead of amlaki Rasciana. We're just using the straight amlaki, and there is some turmeric and there's curcumin extract in there too. So this is good for systemic inflammation. So in fact, something like fibromyalgia, we could combine these, the Pitta balance plus the anti-inflammatory plus the immune modulator, all three of these taken. If there was a lot of heat and burning, then we would use Pitta balance. If there was a lot of pain, we'd throw in the anti-inflammatory, and then of course Amlaki Rasciana, the immune modulator. And that's curcumin here, curcumin extract, 95% pure curcumin extract. And what else? We got some other herbs here. And then if there's a lot of dryness and heat, a lot of times shatavari is used. It's a premier herb just to balance Pitta in the person, particularly if there's acidity and a lot of body heat. We will use it. If there's infection in the body, there will often be a little neem added to it to fight the infection. And here's Mukti Pishti, which is powdered pearls. And this is also very cooling, very fine, and helps to settle the immune system and cool the body and help modulate the immune system. Another thing often used is we call it Trikta Gritta, or we call it liver ghee. And this can be good, particularly for skin conditions like psoriasis. This is used. There we go. See, neem is in there. There's the Guduchi, which I talked about. Trikatu is ginger, pipali, and black pepper. Manjista is for the skin. Bumamalaki is for the liver. There's a little turmeric and some bitter melon. But you can see the two key herbs there in this, cooked in this ghee, is neem and Guduchi. So this is very anti-inflammatory and particularly good for inflammatory skin conditions. So every autoimmune condition, there's other herbs that will support that tissue that's involved, but the overall strategy remains the same. Improve the digestion, make sure there's good elimination, and if there's heavy toxins, there has to be some herbs involved that are removing these toxins. If the person's constipated, then we'll give them a colon herbs, Enarharitaki, Bumamalaki, Triphala Gugulu at night to make sure that we're cleaning these toxins out at the whole body. So this is it's like a cellular detox that needs to take place with better digestion. So, and then of course, the anti-inflammatory diet has to be covered. The diet is not same for everybody, but it will be different based on your prakriti, whether it's vata, pitta, or kapha. And then there'll be herbs for the tissue that's involved. If it's the skin, then there's going to be manjista and other herbs. If there's related to an infection, there'll be antivirals like neem. And then there's even topical. If there's muscle pain, then we often use this like an oil like Mahanarana oil, which is for muscle and joint pain. But if there's too much ama, you cannot put the oil initially, because you'll just make the toxins stay. You're better off to do the sweating and get the toxins out of the system, sweat bath, steaming, hot shower. These would be all more effective initially to, particularly if you're talking with a skin condition where you want to get the body sweating again, because a lot of times these toxins are not coming out of a person because they're not sweating. In Ayurveda, we have 3 eliminating channels: Pushavaya Sutra, the colon, Mutravaya Sutra, the urinary system, and Sveta by Sutra. This is the sweat. So people who are not sweating are not eliminating. It's like not going to the toilet. This is a eliminating organ. So this dry skin where there's no elimination then ends up accumulating toxins over time. So when you have a lot of skin conditions where a person's very dry, you want to steam them out, not put oil on them. And it can make it worse initially. Even if there's muscle pain, you have to be careful not to use oils until you have removed the toxins from the body. And of course, it's easy to tell when the toxins are removed, because all ama, or toxins, creates fatigue. So the energy gets better, digestion gets better, no gas, no bloating, no constipation, no acidity, and appetite is, suitable for that prakriti, that particular body type. And then we know, and the tongue is clean, pink, not covered in film. Then we know that the ama has been removed from the GI tract, and then after some time, the herbs, like particularly the gugulus, Kaishra gugulu, Yogaraj gugulu, can remove the toxins at a deeper level. And so you're removing the toxins, managing the autoimmune response, bringing down Pitta, which is the underlying cause of autoimmune conditions, is this Pitta attacking your immune system. So if you're on a low-fat diet, you're more susceptible to autoimmune condition because you are having lower resistance, lower fat, lower cellular protection at a cellular level. If you're having a lot of spicy foods, hot foods, chili peppers, tomatoes, and other stimulants like coffee, you're going to increase the quality of Pitta, you're going to increase some metabolism, and this can make autoimmune conditions worse. So there are 3 steps, really. First, the digestion and elimination, and step 2 is the modulating of the immune system, and step 3 is to allow the tissue to heal. So I hope that helped you understand that autoimmune conditions can be managed, just like a crying baby can be calmed down, and once it's calm, it can stay down. And then, of course, it can be a trigger, could bring it back on in the future, just like startling a child can make it cry again. So a person will always have to be careful and rebuild that tissue. People who are depleted, skipping meals, not eating, poor nutrition, poor diet, eating junk food, of course, are going to have weaker tissue. And the weak tissue makes you susceptible to having an autoimmune condition later in life in that particular tissue, because the autoimmune condition is going to go and address your weakest tissue. So once again, I hope they give you some hope and inspiration that autoimmune conditions are manageable as per Ayurveda with a good Ayurvedic herbalist. And I hope that if you have such a condition, you seek out such an experienced Ayurvedic doctor or contact myself. And I hope you've learned from this. Of course, Ayurveda is a lifelong learning process. And feel free to correct me in the comment section if there's anything that you find lacking in my explanation. And in other webinars and videos, I will cover individual autoimmune conditions. So hope to hear from you if you need my assistance. And once again, thank you very much.